I thought I was overthinking things until I saw my sister being intimate with my husband with my own eyes. Hello, everyone. Before we start today's story, I have a small request. Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video on our channel. Your support means a lot to us. Where are you watching from? Leave your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. It happened on a quiet Sunday evening. We were at my parents' house, the usual dinner. The usual chaos, the usual way my mother doted on Rose while barely looking at me. I remember thinking how normal everything felt. The smell of roast chicken, the faint hum of jazz from the kitchen radio, the clinking of cutlery. And then, out of nowhere, everything stopped. Rose leaned toward Matthew, whispering something in his ear. He laughed, not the polite, distant chuckle he used to give around my family, but a low, warm laugh that used to be reserved for me. Her hand brushed his wrist. It wasn't an accident. It lingered. My fork slipped from my fingers. Nobody noticed. They were too busy talking about Rose's new job, how lucky she was to have such a helpful brother-in-law. My mother beamed at her like she'd just cured cancer. And I just sat there frozen, watching my husband smile at my sister like I was invisible. I tried to breathe. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe it was nothing. But deep down, I knew the truth had already started to rot inside me. I excused myself and went to the bathroom. My reflection stared back at me, wide-eyed, trembling, the same woman who once believed she had the perfect life. I'd spent 6 years building a marriage on trust, on love, on the belief that Matthew would never hurt me. I defended him, supported him, even sacrificed parts of myself to make him happy. And now here I was, shaking in my mother's tiled bathroom, wondering how long it had been happening right under my nose. When I came back, Rose was sitting in Matthew's chair. Their shoulders touched. He didn't move away. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but all I could do was sit back down and pretend nothing had changed. That night, I couldn't sleep. Matthew climbed into bed beside me like nothing was wrong, his arm brushing against mine. I flinched. He asked if I was okay. I'm fine, I lied, because what else could I say? I saw you with my sister? I needed proof. I needed certainty, not just a feeling. The next morning, as he showered, I found Rose's perfume scent on his shirt. It wasn't mine. It was her favorite, the one she wore since we were teenagers, the one my mother used to say smells like sunshine. I stood there, holding that shirt like it was a crime scene, my heart thundering in my chest. Somewhere deep down, a quiet voice whispered, "This is only the beginning." I didn't know it yet. But that dinner, that one quiet, ordinary night, would become the line that split my life in two. Before Rose and after her. My name is Julia Carter, and for the longest time, I thought I had everything figured out. I wasn't extraordinary or flashy like my sister, but I had a stable job, a loving husband, and a quiet kind of happiness that I built with my own hands. I worked as an interior designer, a job that gave me both freedom and comfort. I loved turning empty rooms into spaces that felt like home. It was a small firm, but I was proud of it. After all, I had built my career while trying to balance being a good wife, cooking, managing the house, making sure Matthew always had someone to come home to. Matthew was the kind of man people admired. Charming, confident, always well-dressed, the sort of person who seemed to have life under control. When we first met, he made me feel safe, like I could finally rest, that I didn't have to keep proving myself. Our 6 years of marriage weren't perfect, but they were steady. He worked long hours as a project manager at a construction company, and I often joked that between our jobs, we were designing homes in every sense of the word. Then there was Rose, my little sister. She had always been the center of attention, the girl who drew every gaze when she entered a room. Growing up, I'd been the quiet, responsible one. She was the radiant one, the baby of the family. My mother adored her, still does, and my father, gentle as he was, never stood up to Mom's favoritism. If Rose wanted something, she got it. If she made a mistake, someone else paid for it. Usually that someone was me. A few months ago, I got a call from her late one evening. Her voice was shaking as she said, "Jules, I'm coming back home. I broke up with Josh. I can't stay in Florida anymore." Before I could even think it through, I said yes. "Of course, Rose, you can stay with us for a while, just until you figure things out." When I told Matthew, he didn't hesitate. "She's your sister." "It's the right thing to do," he said, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. And I believed him because that's who I thought he was, kind, rational. The sort of man who always did what was right. The night Rose arrived. Suitcase in hand and tears still on her cheeks, I felt a pang of sympathy. She looked lost, fragile. I told her she could have the guest room, that she could take her time settling in. It's just for a short while, she promised, but sometimes even the smallest cracks can split open the strongest walls. And from the moment Rose stepped into our house, her perfume lingering in the air, her laughter echoing down the hallway, something inside our home began to shift. It was subtle at first. So subtle I didn't want to see it, but looking back, that was the moment everything started to break. When Matthew offered to help Rose get a job at his company, I thought it was sweet, even generous. She's been through a rough breakup, he said, resting his hand on mine. A little structure might help her start over. I smiled and agreed. After all, Rose was my sister. I wanted her to be okay, but just a few weeks later, something started to feel off. It began with the late-night messages. Matthew's phone would light up on the nightstand around midnight, the glow slicing through the dark. He'd tilt the screen away, murmuring, "It's just work." But when he thought I wasn't looking, I saw her name flash across the top, Rose. They started having inside jokes, laughing about things I wasn't part of. At dinner, she'd touch his arm lightly, her fingers lingering just a second too long. He'd smile in that quiet, private way, the one I used to love because it was mine. One morning, as I got into his car to grab my forgotten purse, I caught it, that faint, sugary scent of rosewater and vanilla. Rose's perfume. It clung to the leather seats like a confession. My stomach twisted. I tried to tell myself she might have borrowed the car, but Matthew never let anyone drive it. The house began to feel strange, like someone was rearranging it while I wasn't home. I noticed the smallest things, the pillow on our bed turned the wrong way, the faint imprint of another head on his side, his shirt tucked away in the laundry basket even though he hadn't worn it the day before. I started watching them. The way he looked at her when she laughed, the way she brushed her hair behind her ear when he spoke. The energy between them was something electric, unspoken, and it didn't belong in my home. Finally, one night, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until we were alone in the kitchen. "Matthew," I said quietly, "is there something going on between you and Rose?" He froze. For a moment, guilt flickered across his face, a shadow gone before I could grasp it. Then his tone hardened. "Julia, that's ridiculous. She's your sister. How could you even think that?" "Because you talk to her more than you talk to me," I said, my voice shaking. "Because her perfume is in your car. Because he slammed his hand against the counter. You're imagining things. Stop being paranoid." The silence that followed was deafening. From that night on, I didn't bring it up again. But something inside me shifted. I started noticing everything, the way they shared glances across the table, the subtle brush of her hand against his back as she passed him the salt. And then, one evening, it happened. We were all having dinner at my parents' house. Laughter filled the air, wine glasses clanked, and my mother complimented Matthew for helping poor Rose rebuild her life. I was slicing my food when I looked up and saw Rose leaning close to him, her lips just inches from his ear, whispering something that made him smile. It was a fleeting, intimate gesture, but to me, it was everything. My breath caught in my throat. At that exact moment, I knew my worst fear had come true. I wasn't overthinking. I was watching my husband fall in love with my sister. After weeks of pretending not to notice, I couldn't breathe in my own home anymore. Every sound, every silence between us felt loaded with secrets I wasn't supposed to know. So I decided to do what desperate wives do, plan a reconnection weekend. Just the two of us, I told Matthew softly one night. No phones, no work, no distractions. He hesitated, then nodded. Maybe that's what we need. We booked a cabin 2 hours away, the kind of place that smelled of pine and rain, where I thought maybe love could start over. I packed wine, his favorite coffee, even that old playlist we used to dance to in the kitchen. I wanted to believe this was salvageable, that maybe if I gave him one last chance, he would choose us. The first night was quiet. Too quiet. He barely spoke during dinner, just kept scrolling through his phone, half smiling at something I couldn't see. When he finally put it down, I looked at him and felt like I was staring at a stranger wearing my husband's face. Matthew, I said softly, my voice trembling, are you sleeping with my sister? He froze. The world stopped moving. For a long moment, he just stared at me, his lips parting slightly like he couldn't decide whether to lie or to breathe. The air between us felt thick, suffocating. Then his eyes filled with tears. And that was my answer. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His silence was a confession louder than any words. But then, as if something broke inside him, he started sobbing, hands over his face, shoulders shaking. I didn't mean for it to happen, he whispered. It just did. She was lonely. I was lonely. I'm sorry, Julia. I'm so sorry. I stood there, watching the man I built my life with crumble in front of me and felt nothing. No pity, no anger. Just an empty, echoing ache, without a word. I grabbed my coat, my phone, and my wallet. He called after me, begging me to stay. But I didn't even turn back. I drove through the night. The road stretching endlessly in front of me. Headlights cutting through my tears dot by the time the sun rose. I knew I was done. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. No drama, no fights. Just signatures on paper, the quiet end of a life I once believed in. I didn't keep the house. I didn't want the furniture. Every object felt poisoned with memories. A few weeks later, a friend sent me a photo. Matthew and Rose smiling together in public, hand in hand. My heart clenched, not because it hurt anymore, but because I realized they didn't even bother hiding it. My mother called that night. Julia, don't be bitter, she said gently. Your sister deserves to be happy too. Happy. With my husband, that was the moment something inside me died for good. The next morning, I packed what was left of my life into 2 suitcases, sold the house, and left town. No goodbye. No forwarding address. Just silence. When I crossed the state line into Colorado, I felt it for the first time in years. Peace, painful, raw, liberating peace. 4 years had passed since I drove away from that life. Minnesota had become my quiet sanctuary, a place where the air was cold, clean, and honest. I built a small design studio from scratch, pouring every ounce of pain into creativity. My projects got noticed, my confidence returned, and somewhere along the way, so did Joy. James came into my life like calm after a storm, a gentle, grounded soul who ran a cozy restaurant downtown. He cooked the way some people pray, with love, with patience, with meaning. When he smiled, I felt seen, not used. When he held my hand, I didn't brace for disappointment. A year later, we got engaged. I had finally stopped flinching at the word forever. Then, one evening, while I was setting up a private event at James's restaurant, the door opened and I heard a voice I hadn't heard in years. Julia? I froze. That voice used to make my heart race. Now it made my skin crawl. Matthew stood at the entrance, thinner, older, haunted. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands trembling slightly. For a brief, detached second, I thought, he looks like a man who's finally met himself. What are you doing here? I asked, my tone sharp but steady. He swallowed hard. I didn't know where else to go. Rose, his voice cracked. She cheated on me. With one of my coworkers. She took everything, the car, the savings. He stopped, his lips quivering, searching for pity that didn't exist. I needed to see you. To say I'm sorry. To have some closure. I almost laughed. Closure. I looked him in the eye and said, You made your bed, Matthew, now lie in it. His face twisted, first in shock, then in shame. But I wasn't done. I nodded toward the exit. This restaurant belongs to my fiancé. You need to leave before I call security. He didn't move. Julia, please, get out. That did it. He turned, shoulders slumped, and disappeared into the night, the door closing behind him. With a soft chime that felt like the end of an era, I stood there for a moment, letting the silence sink in, then exhaled. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just smiled faintly and whispered to myself, finally. It felt good, not revenge, not victory, just balance restored. But fate wasn't done with me. 2 years later, an email arrived out of nowhere. The sender's name made my stomach drop. Rose. The message was short. Julia, I need to talk to you. It's urgent. Against my better judgment, I replied. That's when she told me her kidneys were failing. Stage 4 renal failure. She was on the transplant list, but the wait was too long. Then came the call from my mother. The same pleading tone I'd known all my life. She's dying, Julia. Please, just get tested. You might be the only match. Please, she's your sister. I didn't answer right away. That night, I lay awake next to James, listening to his steady breathing. Outside, snow fell quietly against the window. My heart was torn between blood and betrayal, and deep down, I already knew whatever I decided next would change everything again. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and sorrow. I hadn't been inside one since my father's heart surgery years ago, and walking down that fluorescent hallway now made my stomach twist. Every step echoed a reminder that I didn't belong here anymore. Not in their world. When the nurse called my name, I followed her quietly to the testing room. She drew blood, asked questions, smiled politely without knowing the history written in invisible scars across my skin. 2 days later, my mother called. Her voice trembled. Julia, you're a match, she said, as if announcing a miracle. You can save her. Silence. Just my breath against the receiver. Then her voice cracked. Please, honey. She's so scared. She cries for you every night. You're her only hope. I said I'd think about it. I didn't. I already knew my answer. When I arrived at the hospital the next morning, the entire family was there. My mother, my father, and Rose, pale and fragile in the hospital bed. Her hair thinned, her eyes hollow. For a fleeting moment, I barely recognized her. Julia, she whispered when she saw me. I knew you'd come. Her smile was weak but hopeful, as if she truly believed I was there to save her. I walked closer, each step measured, my heels clicking softly on the tile floor. I stopped at the foot of her bed. Everyone watched, the nurse, my parents, even the doctor hovering in the background. Is it true? My mother asked. You're a match, right? You'll do it? I looked at Rose. Her hands trembled as she reached out. Please, Julia. I'm sorry. I've made mistakes, but please don't let me die. For a second, I almost felt something, a flicker of the sisterly instinct I used to have when we were children. But then, memories returned like shards of glass. Her laughter in my kitchen. The scent of her perfume on my husband's collar, my mother's voice saying, Your sister deserves to be happy too. I drew a deep breath and said, quietly but clearly, yes, I'm a match. Hope filled the room. My mother gasped. My father exhaled in relief. Rose began to cry. Then I added, But I won't do it. The air turned still. You could hear the heart monitor beeping. Rose blinked through her tears. What? I took a step closer, meeting her eyes. The same shade as mine, but colder now. You took my husband, I said evenly. Now you want my kidney too? No, her face crumpled. Julia, please. I turned to my parents. You taught me to give everything, even to those who didn't deserve it. Not anymore. My mother gasped. She's your sister. I met her gaze. No, she stopped being that the day she destroyed my life. I turned, walking toward the door. Behind me came the sound of sobbing, Rose's. Then my mother's. I didn't stop. As I stepped outside, the cold winter air hit my face. It was sharp, cleansing, almost holy. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilt, just freedom. That day I didn't save her life, I saved my own. The morning sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, painting the floor in soft gold. James stood at the stove, humming under his breath as he flipped pancakes for our kids, Leo, 7, and Emma, 4. Their laughter filled the room, that pure, unguarded kind that makes everything else fade away. I watched them from the doorway, coffee mug in hand, my heart swelling with quiet warmth. There was a time I thought I'd never feel peace again, that I'd carry bitterness forever like a shadow I couldn't wash off. But life, somehow, had found a way to give me something better. James turned and smiled. You're staring again, he teased. Because you're cute, I replied. And he laughed, the kind of laugh that heals something inside you without even trying. After breakfast, we took the kids to the park. It was early spring in Minnesota. The air still crisp, but alive with newness. I pushed Emma on the swing while Leo ran ahead, pretending to be a superhero. James walked beside me, his hand brushing mine, a small, grounding gesture that said everything words didn't have to. Sometimes, when I see him play with the kids, I wonder how I ever mistook comfort for love before. How I ever thought loyalty was too much to ask. Later that evening, after we tucked the children into bed, I sat by the window with a cup of tea. Outside, the snow began to fall. Gentle and slow. It's funny. People think closure comes when you confront those who hurt you. But for me, it came in the quiet moments like this, when I realized I no longer cared what became of them. Rose had passed away a few months after that day at the hospital. I didn't go to the funeral. My parents stopped reaching out after that. Sometimes I still see their names on social media, smiling in photos that no longer include me, and that's fine. Because I'm not part of that story anymore. I took a deep breath and looked around my home. Drawings taped to the fridge. Mismatched coffee mugs, a vase of fresh daisies James picked that morning. Every piece of this life was built with honesty, effort, and love. When people ask if I miss my family, I tell them the truth. Sometimes blood doesn't make family. Loyalty does. I reached for my journal, an old habit I never outgrew, and wrote a single line across the page. My family isn't the one I was born into. It's the one I built. Then I closed it, smiling to myself as I heard James's footsteps coming down the hall. He stopped behind me, wrapping his arms around my shoulders. What are you thinking about? Just how far I've come. He kissed the top of my head. You deserve every bit of it. And for once, I believed that completely. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft, quiet, and endless. Inside, I sat in the warmth of the life I created, knowing that sometimes survival isn't about what you lose. It's about what you finally find.